My view on market veganism is that it tends to, in a political sense, individualize both our understanding of oppression. It kind of um, makes it less likely for us to think about the structures of oppression. And it also individualizes the possibilities of resistance as well, and tends to narrow things down into a focus on consumption rather than focusing on the production and how that could be politically targeted as well. Epistemologically, market veganism, or indeed just the market, doesn't really know what an animal is. It doesn't want to know what an animal is. It doesn't have an interest in the subjectivity of non-human animals. However, at the same time, it insists upon the killability of animals, and thus this is one of the problems of market veganism. It's embracing an economic system that doesn't want to begin to understand the knowledge of the diverse knowledge of non-human animals. Okay, so I've been saying for a few years that one way to resist vegan capitalism, if you like, is to take veganism further and to insist not just on the non-killability of animals, but also to insist that food itself is not a commodity. And if you then take that approach, then you can make alliances with food justice organizations and approaches, and you begin to create a much more interesting intersectional politics. On the issue of cultured meat, it's a sort of understandable faith that some animal advocates put in the potential technology. People are very frustrated with the slowness of change, and they're frustrated with the conformity of people to social norms, of course. And so here's this presumably great idea where we can bypass, using technology to bypass ethics. We don't need to ask people to reflect upon the ethics of what they do. We can just simply replace what they do with some kind of cultured meat. So it maintains the symbolics of animal consumption in that respect, and it could be seen as a smoother transition away from the mass killing of farmed animals. There are some problems though, and you could potentially make the same critiques of vegan meats as well, although I'm more sympathetic to those. But part of the problem here is a false conflation of meat with protein, I think, and that people think somehow that they need meat to consume protein, and I think there's good evidence to suggest that anyhow in wealthy countries we overconsume protein anyway, and I think we need to rethink what a meal is as well. And so there are many different ways of eating, obviously, and we don't need to center a meal around a large protein source. So whether that will become as you ask, a biotechnological trend, which becomes a significant force for animal liberation, I think there are good reasons to be skeptical. Cultured meat, as it stands at the moment, still involves the exploitation of animals, and I would be tempted to say, let's redefine what eating is and what a meal is, and let's go that way. But this it may well come into being, and we can argue that vegan meats are already being quite effective in terms of aiding people with transition. The third question that you ask in regard to the role of sociologists is obviously a very important one. I think sociologists are invisible. They're too invisible. They're largely absent from public debate. They generally need to work on their scholar activist identity, I think, and their practice. Probably some scholars still have anxieties over the issue of neutrality, but sociology has always been an interested body of knowledge. It's always had things to say about the world. It's in its history, and it's in its evolution of the discipline. There is nothing wrong with sociologists acting as agents for change as long as they are transparent in terms of their values and their critique. That's after all exactly what natural scientists do. Natural scientists make incredible interventions upon society, and are clearly it's clearly inaccurate to describe the natural sciences as value neutral. Of course, everything and all disciplines are political. So there is a responsibility now more than ever for sociologists to promote critical thinking around relations of power. We live in times of intersecting crises. From a critical animal studies perspective, sociologists need to break out from their humanist loyalties and to recognize that human-animal relations are often also exploitative and violent, alongside the traditional focus on class, race, and gender, of course, and other important relations of power such as sexuality and disabilities as well.